Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. Just know it's always valued. We get a ton of feedback. We get a ton of people reaching out to the vault, so we always appreciate it. The email is in the description, christian@trustchristian.com if you want to reach out or get someone to reply back. Once again, that's christian@trustchristian.com. This is the Vault, episode 388, Instinctual Trustee versus Trained Trustee. Definitely wanted to do this episode today. Could have did a lot of topics, but this is a topic that a lot of people reach out to the Vault. They have a lot of questions. This one's here to address those questions, particularly to the people that reach out to the Vault and they're like, oh, I'm an instinctual trustee. I picked it up over the internet, or I picked it up just happenstance. And we just want to go ahead and address the elephant in the room. We want to address what ultimately is the vault's stamp of approval or pride and joy or moniker, which is trustee training. When you're talking about dealing with trustee training versus instinctual trustees, so we definitely going to talk about it today on this episode, the vault episode 388, instinctual trustee versus trained trustee, and definitely talk about it. So, in this particular episode, when we talk about the instinctual trustee, we're going to give y'all definitely what these people look like. So, you can say, do I look like this person? Because trusteeship is formal, trusteeship is training. That's just bottom line. You can go ask any professional in any environment. They're going to tell you they have formal, standardized tests or training that they have to almost take every year to be current on the current situations. But as a trustee, you're dealing with fiduciary shit. So we definitely have to say this isn't legal advice or financial advice. It's definitely not that. So instinctual trustees, and like we said, we're going to go over what they look like, give some compare and contrast to how are you holding up the snuff, because these are the standards in which sometimes aren't talked about, but people say, oh, I want to be a trustee. Even sitting in front of somebody today and they don't understand trusteeship, they understand being a pedal boy, going out there raising money, being the bell cow. It's nothing wrong with that, going out in the world. It's just interesting to see, the bell cows making the most noise, but who's really managing the money? See, then you get the people that say, oh, but the bell cows, the entrepreneurs, they're not really the fundraisers. I mean, the money managers, they're not managing the money. And that's where we get into trusteeship. Because sometimes the bell cows will look like they're instinctual trustees, which is, that's really how it looks. They look like they're instinctual trustees. You ask someone, hey, do you think X, Y, and Z is a trustee? Traditionally, you ask, is that person a trustee? 9 times out of 10, especially in the public, they're not. They're not the manager of the money. See, the trustee is the fiduciary. The trustee manages the money. So when we talk about instinctual trustees, a lot of times from what we've seen, whether it's people reaching out to the vault or just once again even engaging with someone earlier today and having a conversation, and they think, well, just because someone's the bell cow, they're truly the asset manager. They're not the money manager. So are people going to say, well, the money managers don't matter? Well, the money managers are the trustees. The money managers are the fiduciaries. They have decisions that have to be made, they have to be run through them. So there's standards that they have to uphold in their fiduciaryship. So we're going to talk about that today. So once again, when you talk about instinctual trustee, these are individuals that really want to X themselves out rather quickly when you really think about it. You know, you want them to ask themselves out. You want them to reveal themselves to you. These are people that are winging it when you talk to them. Not necessarily because they don't have a formal education, but when you talk to them, they are saying things that could traditionally not necessarily just be counter to what you know as a fiduciary, but they think that they don't understand the actual construction of a trust as a trustee, and so they may not be familiar with the many different various ones. You ask the instinctual trustees; these are people traditionally that are in living, that are in the public side. You know, they're winging it because in the private side you're trained. On the public side, you're winging it. Instinctual, the instinctual trustees, they're usually on the public side. Not too many on the private side because when you're in the private side, you're trained to be a trustee. You know, and is it a cheap education? Definitely not. Is it a formal education? Definitely. You're trained. It's like somebody working at a bank. They're trained. You're trained as a trustee. So not necessarily to just toot the horn of the vault of like, oh, you gotta enroll in trustee training. It's not that for sure. It's more of okay, let's talk about we have trustee training, that's what we've always talked about. Whereas on the instinctual side, they're out here winging it. They're gonna piecemeal it through the internet. They're gonna piecemeal it, trying to ask you have a book that we could read and things of that nature. And so it's interesting to hear the thought process of the instinctual trustee because you know when it comes down to it there are some blank spots and questions when you ask them things and what's interesting is not even to see the level of non-disclosure that should be imparted when you're engaging and having conversations with people. Sometimes traditionally they underestimate the power of the non-disclosure and the privacy and the conversations, having private conversations, things of that nature. The instinctual trustee, you know, we were talking to someone recently and this is a wild conversation anyways, but you know, nevertheless, this individual in particular wanted to talk about all of these wild things that they could do as a trustee when you're on the public side. We're not talking that at the vault. We're talking private. We're talking trained. We're not just talking, oh, public. We're not talking only public. We're talking private. The instinctual trustee, oh man, you know, I could do this, I could do that. Okay. Have you done any of them? No. And traditionally, on the private side, usually most people are duplicating the same type of thought processes. And this is the interesting part, is when you get around wealthier people, you see the deals they're doing. But what's interesting is how many people are engaging to move around and get in wealthier areas so they can literally get the trained information. You know, we're engaging in some with some groups right now, and they actually have a class at a college which we definitely are looking forward to. You know, at one point in the year, maybe a 3 day event as well, or it may be, even if it was a 1 day event, you know, not just because, oh, they're giving out some certification. When you think about it, if you're trained in some information and you can, and these people certify you from their particular entity, you know, like these companies, they give you a certification for being a financial planner or whatever. You know, not necessarily saying nowadays most people have to stay working for the company, but in this particular case, let's just say that you know XYZ company, they have a certification, but they have it at a college, and you know once you get that certification, you know if you were to do some things that they ask you to do, you may be able to work for them and be a trustee or be whatever they're talking about because or money manager, traditionally a money manager, asset manager, financial manager, something like that. you know they train people into these positions. We train people into these positions. When we even at the vault actually came out with Cornell the trading partner and put him out there, there were classes that were associated that there was he started out with 2 days, that was wearing people out. That's the instinctual trustee stuff. The trained trustees, they okay with doing 3 or 4 days straight. So you got the trained trustees, they were doing the 2 days. Some people remember those old school days. Now nowadays he's doing 1 day. Traditionally, he may do a double back day. He does do additional training, and as you can see, it's an additional training because it's continuous education. That's what the trustee training program is. That's what it's really out about here. Is continuously getting around individuals that stretch you, that push you, that force you to get better, and then on the back end of that, and getting educated and seeing what bigger deals, bigger investors are doing is very very essential. So that those are things that really make a big difference from the instinctual versus the trained trustee. Because when you really think about it, instinctual trustees are, oh, I ran across the trust information on the internet. Well, of course, everybody did, right? Unless their family was passing them something along. Well, okay, the family may, we've had people reach out and say, oh, my family passed me along this. I'm winging it. Traditionally, they haven't been doing too good. 90% of them, so then you get them, and what do? They're in it. They're telling you they're in some family entity, but are they willing to? Traditionally, ladies and gentlemen, the instinctual trustees are winging it. They're winging it because their family threw them in a situation, and they probably weren't formally trained. So most smart families are going to go to the bank, and the bank is going to be the trustee over their family estate. Maybe the family has meetings, maybe quarterly, or you just never know. There's so many variations of what a family is actually doing when they have the bank as the trustee over the family estate. That's how that goes. So when we see the instinctual trustees, we could almost say they're not even just winging it. They're dolo, as the young kids say. They're the dolos. They're doing it all by themselves. They don't have any friends around them that are making moves. They don't have any family members that are trying to manage the entities with them, whether it's a corporation or X, Y, and Z. See, the trained families, they work together. This is the difference between a disparity of the information. This the disparity of the information is when you see, oh, the instinctual trustee is like, oh, I know this is right to do. I think this is right to do. I think this is good for the family. We need, I know I got some assets. I need to make sure the assets is good for the family, and I got some kids coming up, and I might have some grandkids coming up, and so I got to protect the assets. I got to make sure that it goes in the right position, for the family estate. Right, that's the instinctual. Oh, I know from the inside that that's what I'm supposed to be doing is passing along my family something in the right way. Then you got to get trained. Because if you already could have did it, you would have did it. See, these are the things that are okay. It's just, you don't need to wing this type of stuff. You're dealing with money, first of all. You don't want to wing it. Instinctual trustees. Let's think of some conversations that we've had throughout the years. We've had a lot of good conversations because a lot of people just end up getting into trustee training. So that's where we kind of end up pushing that needle. Whereas the instinctual trustees, they they're trying to tell you something that they think they're trying to be a bank. The instinctual trustee is trying to be a bank. The trained trustee is trained in banking because they're a trustee. Instinctual trustees, they're trying to what they not necessarily create a bank, uh, but they don't understand where they truly fall as the trustee. See, it was funny, we talked to some seniors sometime. The seniors, that's where you always get a lot of good value out of. And the senior says, this idiot doesn't even know that they're a trustee and they're supposed to go to trust funds. Do you hear that? The trained trustees, we know that you're supposed to grow the funds. The instinctual trustee thinks I'm just supposed to covet assets. I'm supposed to just sit on assets. Oh, I'm just going to sit on these assets because, I don't know how to make money off of the house. Or, I got a property over here and I haven't made any money off of it. Or I got it here, but I haven't really turned real estate into a business yet for the family. So I have a few properties here and there, maybe a few everywhere, and right, you're the instinctual trustee. The instinctual trustee may not even have good accounting skills, or when we say accounting, just talking about staying on top of the numbers. The trained trustee is. Oh man, trust Christian and the voter. You really hard on trustees. First of all, we deal with families that if you're enrolling, you're gonna take something serious. Appreciate Memphis, Tennessee for tuning in live, listen, and replay. Always appreciate Memphis, Tennessee for tuning in live, listen, and replay. We got a question in the chat. Said, how does one connect with other families who are working together? Okay, so are you talking about in the public or in the private? Even if you talk about in the public, they're always going to be at galas. Like even if you go to the Chamber of Commerce galas, they're usually gonna somebody's usually people are going to bring their family members to a Chamber of Commerce gala. You know, that's definitely that one. Other families. See, these are the questions. That's how you know where you are. You know, straight up, you got to go to the golf courses. You got to go to the country. It's not necessarily like, oh, you have to go to the country club, but it's one of those things that, hey, I'm not telling you you got to play tennis, but you got to do that. So the instinctual trustees versus the trained trustees. You know, somebody said, oh, well, how do we connect with the other families working together? You think about it, the families that are working together. It's almost like one of those things where you do say, "Oh man, is it one of those things that the families that they play sports, they go out there and they like sit on the sidelines for their children together and build relationships together and have like cookouts together and stuff like that together?" Yeah. How does one likely how Interestingly enough, somebody said, "How likely are these private individuals to be open to collaborate with new families?" And to the novice doofus Rufus, you know, they're gonna say, "Oh man, they don't want to do a deal with me because they have all of this money or some poor mentality." But the biggest thing is you just gotta have a deal, quote unquote, big enough. The biggest thing is you want to come in there, you want to have a deal, and I think that's where so many people go wrong is they don't have a deal. If you go in the environments with wealthy people, you're either there to learn or you have a deal. You're either pitching your deal or you're learning because they're wealthier, they have more. Of course, they're going to share. They're sharing with you because the environment is to foster growth and collaboration. So of course, they want to collaborate with new families. You have to remember families that are wealthy have to have to give money away. They're at that life cycle of the wealth spectrum where these entities, they, I mean, come on now, after you get past like a certain number, there's no like, oh, you need more than this to live on. So when you get to that point, there's a lot of wealth that's just used for investment. And so when you see a lot of the wealthier families, especially in the private sector, they're looking for downside risk. They're looking for, you know, it's funny, we saw a program the other day about prop trading where basically you can buy pretty much somebody giving you a certain amount of money on margin to trade if you know how to trade, which was, kind of funny. It's kind of cute to me. Uh, so, it's kind of interesting to see that one where you can spend less than maybe 20K and get prop trading of about 400K plus. to prop trade for this company. Of course, you have to make certain returns. Of course, you have certain performance measures. But there's a lot of people out here that say they know how to trade. But if they know how to trade, we know on the private side you're a prop trader. If you're really trading, they're just talking the gift of the gab out here. Oh, I'm a trader. I'm a trader. I'm a trader. I'm a trader. So how? If you think about it, the best traders they're trading for other people. That's what the best traders are doing. They're taking on additional risk, not just their own. That's the difference. They're trained and to get their own money back and to get others' money back and do it with minimal emotion. The instinctual trustee, they think that, it's almost like they're gambling. They look at, the trading as a gamble. They might be cynical. And not only that, these individuals instinctually, quote unquote, are sitting on assets because they don't understand how you're to grow money. You have to take risk, but you have to count your downside. Your downside is where they're giving millions of dollars away, whether it's through a charity or through a trust or any other type of way where they're giving money away, what they call nowadays like these incubator companies, these new startup companies. So that's why you see a lot of the bigger wealthier families now they call themselves VCs, they call themselves angels, and they're giving money not necessarily to instinctual trustees because a trained trustee is the VCs, the families that have the money. These private individuals, they're trained trustees. Will they give an instinctual trustee money? Look, if you go in there and you don't have a good pitch, it can be bad for you. You know, we talked about that with one of our mentors that managed over some billions, and he definitely told us directly that you got to make sure your pitch is good. You have a solid, confident pitch, and that's what trained trustees do. They're going in with a pitch deck. That's the bottom line. Now, we're not saying you need a pitch deck with a whole bunch of slides, but you might need a pitch deck with a few slides. You got to be able to answer some questions. And so instinctual trustees, they're not practiced because they haven't been trained by a seasoned vet. And that's another thing. We could talk about even the trained having mentors and the instinctual not having mentors because the trained having mentors is critical. It's critical. The instinctual trustees haven't had a formal mentor. Instinctual trustees, these individuals, they're winging the leadership. You got to have a formal leadership program for your family. For the trust that you're a part of as a trustee, you got to have a formal, quote unquote, training leadership program. When you think about it, you're the senior trustee, you're going to be on the board, you're making decisions. It's the same exact thing uh, all the time, making decisions. The instinctual trustee, they may be making decisions by themselves. Instinctual trustees may not have a chain of command. They think you can just wing leadership. The trained trustees have a chain of command. Appreciate New Jersey for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate New Jersey for tuning in live, listening to replay. This is definitely one we wanted to do because for years now, so many people are instinctual trustees that reach out to the phone. When you reach out as a trained trustee, you kind of already know what you're getting. You're getting somebody that is pretty. They're pretty actually probably pretty successful in their business already. They've kind of got it to a stable level. They've been able to enjoy some fruits of their labor. Their businesses allowed them to buy some of the toys in life. And so their business has been able to quote unquote pay dividends now. Not every company can pay dividends right away. They actually have what's called earnings. And so we have had trustees go through the training program they're like, oh, I just need to kind of formalize some things and things of that nature. And that's what we aid in with what we do. So when we talk about the instinctual trustees, these are trustees once again that may not have that leader, that mentorship, in their back pocket. They may not have enough private people in their back pocket, in their telephone Rolodex. They may not have enough private people to give them consult as a trustee in situations. Why? Because now you being the senior trustee, you are actually supposed to be superior in going out and finding tons of people that are good at what they do. So when you do have situations, you can go pull from the best of who you know, not just the best of the world, quote unquote, but the best of who you know, because you went out and got the best and put it in your Rolodex. And see, these are the advantages that the trained trustees have, is that they have a Rolodex of people that it's almost like they were gifted a number. They were gifted a telephone number. They were gifted an email, quote unquote. They were gifted a address. This is what you're gifted to pursue that relationship. Instinctual trustees. They like politicking. They like sitting around on assets. Trained assets. Trained trustees are trained to grow the wealth. At one point, we got to take action. At one point, we have to make decisions. The thing about what we see, the separator from what we know is going to go to at least 2 to 3 gens, is the senior taking a very aggressive role towards knowing the information, getting as much information as they can, uh, and things of that nature, very aggressively to move their family forward in strengthening possible knowledge gaps, quote unquote. Because remember, they're trained in this information, so that there's knowledge gaps that get filled, and then they're not doing this instinctually because maybe they did have a business that was yielding over 500K, 250K, maybe over a million. These individuals that were, we're not going to say they were formally trained, but they still were instinctual and trained. Now they literally have what's called the trained information that they can use now, and they're not doing anything instinctual. When we mean that in the respect of them trying to wing it, they're not going to wing anything because they were already thinking formally, they got more formal, and then now they can move forward in a formal, the most formal fashion that they possibly can, minimizing a lot of their downside. We could almost say 90% plus of their downside, which is great. Whereas the instinctual trustees, they may not, they make excuses for investing in themselves, or the trust literally taking out an expense for the trustee to learn how to grow and become the best trustee. So we actually have had trustees go through the trustee training program and go through law school. So they say, okay, I need this information, but now I need it even more. And I need and think about how powerful that is to have a law degree in an environment where it's about being a trained trustee. So the more formal you are, the more you can have conversations with formal people in the environment. Now, when we say you're trained, we're not saying you have to quote unquote go to a class or a school. What we're saying trained is a system of information that allows people to do something successfully over a period of time, which is manage assets, assets under management. How many dollars, what is the equity value of the assets that you have under management in your life right now? And it's very important to take account of the so-called assets that you have that have a zero behind it or a one in front of it. It's up to you to put yourself in a position where you know the number that you're managing, so you can go do what? Every day grow it. That's the difference. The instinctuals, they're running around with their heads chopped off, saying, "Oh no, I don't know. Is this the best investment? This is the best investment. This is the best investment." Look, we're gonna go ahead and share with you all. There's a thing called an investment mandate. Just like they had a mandate for, the situation that just went on for the past 2 years, they have mandates in the government. Well, they have mandates in financial environment because it's a financial term. It's called the mandate. And in the mandate, it says what you can and you can't invest in. So y'all saw now y'all can hear kind of maybe why some people's businesses went down. Why? Because there was a mandate in place that said we're not allocating capital, whether it's at a bank or through any government sponsored program, that is going to be for these industries. We're giving them to these. That's how that went. Now, to the business side of the mandate, the instinctual trustees, they don't have a mandate. Trained trustees, you got to have a mandate. It's the governing instrument. It's the thing that governs your actions as a trustee. So you're not taking too much risk. You can take risk, but it also has in there how you're not going to take too much risk. The percentage of how much you're not going to take. It's actually written out on paper. That's the difference. They got a plan on paper. It's called the governing instrument. So then we get back to the instinctual trustees. They don't have the governing instrument. You hear that? They don't have the governing instrument. The instinctual trustees are going to fail. The trained trustees, the ones that ever increase their education and the information, will prevail. You got to get rid of your ignorance. You're dealing in an environment that says money will crush you like a wave. So you got to be trained in the management of that money if you're going to manage it properly. The instinctual trustees, they still winging it. Instinctual trustees, they think with an entitlement mentality. These are almost your politicians. But the worst part about it is the politicians are trained. They're trained in the information. What do you mean when you walk in the door, they pull you to the side, we go to lunch together? Don't they associate together? Yes. Then they pull you to the side. Hey, make sure your wealth is in this position. Then y'all hear these stories come up. Oh, these individuals aren't shouldn't be able to do with stock and blah blah blah. And then we seen this one politician. How you gonna be on the inside snitching? So they're on the inside saying, "Well, oh, yeah, politicians from the inside shouldn't be able to do this." You're a politician. What are you talking about? You think you're gonna put something in place that stops people that are actually letting you in on deals? That's how you know you got money, because you wanna go bang against the titans. You want to bang against the so-called irrefutable ones. Talking about, oh, maybe politicians shouldn't be able to transfer stock and shouldn't have a period and blah blah. First of all, are they really supposed to be there forever, or are they supposed to actually go in for a period of time and leave? Then you wouldn't have an issue with them going back to making money privately or on their own. But instead, looks like some people get in here and turn this into a long career. But they're not instinctual, they're trained. But they're very instinctual in their speech. They're going to talk to the instinctual trustees. Something for nothing. There's a freebie. Well, we appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. This is The Vault, episode 388, Instinctual Trustee versus Trained Trustees. That's definitely important. I mean, you really make it a point to measure up to not just the Vault standard, but the public standard of making it a point to get around, quote unquote, the environments that are going to feed your mind to get into better positions where you're around better relationships, where you're not begging for a little bit of money, you're going for the bigger money. And that's a great thing. Doing bigger deals, doing better deals. Nothing should stop you from doing that. Uh, But we already know that that comes to the trained trustees. We wanted to bring up a point even in this episode about, you think about it, the best CEOs or most CEOs or most people that are in positions of, CMO, CFO, CIO, CEO, CFO. When you see these people in these positions, they usually have a trained business education. And that's because they know how to follow the rules. They know how to follow the system. They already done did it. It's like even somebody just typed into the chat, oh, go get a Series 7, go get a 66. Not to say you said go get them, but we already have mentors that have that. They already had that. They'll tell you the advantage and the disadvantage just by having a humble conversation. This is my plan. Hey, I'm just thinking about going to get the 7 and the 66. Well, okay. Well, I had that before, and I'm not using it anymore. It's like, I just wanted to be free and unencumbered. Okay, but that's the difference. You trained by somebody that has, 20 years plus of experience, 30 years plus of experience. That's the difference. Not relying on your own experience. They say it's good to learn from experience. It may not always have to be your own, though. Biggest thing is investing in your quote unquote education. And there's not going to be any discounts in the private sector. If it isn't any in the public sector, it's definitely not going to be any in the private sector. So it's no discounts. It's just a formal way of playing the game. We see now the difference between people that, you know, they're not even trustees, but people in the public sometimes perceive the instinctual trustees as the trained trustees because the trained trustees know how to be private. The instinctual trustees are still public. They're still winging it. They're still tiptoeing it. They're trying to figure out the song and dance. And the trained trustees, they know the song and dance. They have good mentorship. They have good leadership in front of them. They have a good network. They built these things. That's the difference between an instinctual trustee and a trained trustee. An instinctual trustee versus a trained trustee. That's the difference. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. This is the Vault, episode 388. Definitely appreciate people for reaching out. Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from y'all. Peace. Enjoy.